Really a blowout quarter. It exceeded even these elevated expectations. What was your biggest takeaway from the report? Have you changed your price target at all?
Yes, my price target went from 490 to 600. I mean, biggest takeaway is that it again, at this point, it seems like there is infinite demand for GPUs to build these large language models. And no matter how much NVIDIA ships, it just seems like there is a customer out there willing to take that incremental part that NVIDIA is putting out there.
Infinite demand. You don't hear those words very often, Matt. By the way, your new price target, just looking, implies that you see the stock moving 17% higher. So how does it move that 17%? What's the catalyst? As you can see, Jensen Huang putting out some very optimistic guidance for the current quarter. Where's that next leg of this rally coming from?
So I think it's really just them continuing to execute in terms of putting more product out there. So right now, my conversation suggests there's 40 weeks of lead time plus for their H100 product in certain channels. Other channels, it's a year plus. And so I'm being a bit facetious in saying infinite demand, but there is more demand than they can meet. And so for them, it's just ramping output. At some point, you do have to see these models turn into revenue for their customers. And so we have to see more use of AI, but we're not at that point. Right now, everyone is training these models.
All right. I know you're just being colorful when you said infinite demand, but I do want to talk about supply and demand for a second. Two factors going into this report were the supply chain and also China. So on the call, CEO Jensen Huang said he expects supply to actually increase in each of the next 4 quarters. But he also added there wasn't really a rush of orders from China ahead of any possible increase in U.S. restrictions. What was your takeaway from those two issues?
So I think there's a larger issue with China. So I think for all of tech, you have to wonder at any point, will the administration determine that shipments might be a problem for U.S. interests, and does that create risk? Obviously, Nvidia being on the forefront of AI, they're not excluded from that. But I think in the same vein, that.
Well, Matt, can I ask you, were you surprised that the China sales for data centers were not higher? Were you expecting those to be higher? Jensen Huang said it was still in the historical range, about 20 to 25% of data center sales.
No, I think that NVIDIA is trying to fulfill all of its customers. And so I don't think they're shipping more to China to get ahead of a ban. And again, what they said is, at least at this point, they don't expect the U.S. to shift policy to ban more of their products going to China.
But you're worried about it. You're saying that's a at least near-term risk to future sales right now, the possibility of that happening.
I mean, I think it's a risk for all of tech. So I have to consider it with effectively all of my names. So it's certainly out there.
All right. I want to talk about the broader chip sector. Look at the SMH this morning. It's up on the back of these Nvidia earnings. When I last checked, up over 2%. What other chip names do you see as beneficiaries of this blowout report from Nvidia?
So TSM is a direct supplier, right? And they're the point of constraint, and that it's bringing on packaging that is the portion of the supply chain where Nvidia is just constrained in terms of what they ship. But beyond TSM, and a few names in, say, testing in Taiwan, the problem with this is there's not a ton of other beneficiaries. So at some point, I think AMD is in second place in this race to compete with Nvidia. And I think eventually this huge AI demand will benefit them, maybe Intel to some extent. But at the same time, they were talking about replacing CPUs. So, it's a bit of a mixed bag for the rest of the industry.
I want to hit on a stock that we're showing the viewers right now, Super Microchip, up over 8% right now, up almost 9%. It seems like it's obviously rallying on the back of these Nvidia results. Why this company? It's one we don't talk about that often.
Yeah, so I actually shifted the name from underperforming to neutral yesterday. In part in expectation that we might get a good number from Nvidia. There are only so many system builders who build systems using Nvidia's parts. Supermicro was early to the market. They are one of the leaders in providing AI systems. So when you see Nvidia put up a big number, I think the read through is that their customers are also doing pretty well.